Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we love to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and conservative select performer, and of course, multi-family real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Quentin D'Souza. Hey Quentin.
Hey, how's it going, Barry?
It's going fantastic. How's it going for you?
Oh, it's awesome. Great day.
You're up in Ontario, Canada, right? So you guys are getting some nice weather. And getting nice summers, I'm sure, there, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool, very cool. Well, hey, do you want to sort of give an introduction into yourself about sort of what you've been up to and what you've been doing?
Yeah, for sure. I started investing in real estate in 2004. I started to really get into single family homes up to about 4 units. That's where I was really focused. And I would buy properties, fix them, refinance, and then rent them. Now you would probably be rebranded as BRRR, but it didn't have a name, and people have been doing it since the 70s anyway. So it's just the branding of it, but that's what I was doing back then in 2008, up to about 2014 when I had created enough cash flow from my rental properties in order to leave my job as a teacher. So I was a teacher for about 20 years up to that point, and it was I had like 3 degrees. I was going to become a principal basically, and I decided to change directions at that point. My kids were quite young at the time too, so my wife really was supportive of me making that change. I left my job and I focused on my real estate portfolio full time in 2014, and haven't looked back since. I actually wish I did it a little bit sooner than I did, but I was really nervous about making that change, but I made it. And now I really focus on apartment building repositioning. So the same thing I used to do before with the 1 to 4 unit properties, now I do with smaller apartment buildings. So we work on up to 30 to 40 unit buildings now, turning over tenants, improving efficiencies, looking at like water efficiency, electrical efficiencies, lower my expenses, increase income, refinance the property again, 3 to 5 years down the road, repay the investors, and then hold on to those properties and continue to cash flow and continue to build the portfolio. So at this time, I'm working on a really big deal, and I'll be at about 80 million in assets that I've purchased. The way that I operate, I have the minimum I will have is a 25% interest in any project that I do. So I'm not broken up into smaller parts. And so that's about, I would say, 30% of my portfolio. I have a 25% interest, just myself. And then the rest of the portfolio, I have 50 to 100% ownership in that portfolio. So that's where I'm at now in real estate, and I'm continuing to grow. I feel like I'm just getting started. So it's great. I love real estate investing, but more than that, I love the people that I get to meet, and just the different experiences that I've had over the years. And I really enjoy the repositioning process, whether it's smaller buildings, which I don't really do anymore. I really focus on the bigger buildings because they're very much like net worth plays. So the smaller buildings, I felt that there were more cash flow plays, and now the bigger buildings, I feel like now that I don't really need to generate funds for cash flow purposes, that like I look at the buildings as being like big piggy banks, right? And they generate a lot more net worth for me, and I can access that by refinancing the property and then taking those funds in and investing in more buildings as well. So it's been a cool ride so far, and I like I said, I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah, but and cool story, by the way, and congrats on all your success. That's really cool. Like you said, I feel like you're just getting started, but you started about 15 years ago, so it's like a 15-year overnight success, right? I guess it's kind of right, but it's cool. Like that's a massive portfolio, so congratulations on that. But out of interest, you saying that, you bring up a good point that you say the single families and doing that is more of a cash flow play, and the bigger properties are more of a net worth play. If someone was starting out, would you advise them, therefore, if they say their goal was to get out their job and they wanted to get out of their W-2 job and have that financial freedom, would you suggest more focusing on single families, or would you suggest starting with some apartment complexes and getting your net worth to somewhere? Which way would you advise them, you think?
I really think it depends on the person and what their personality is like, and how much funds they have to work with, and what they want to do and what their goals are, right? So if their goal is to quit their job, whatever they're doing right now, and focus on real estate full time, then what I would suggest they do is first start off with getting experience and finding an area in real estate that you're going to enjoy working on, right? Because like real estate has so many different avenues that you can go down. You could be wholesaling, you could be flipping properties, but the thing is, what ends up happening is that most people replace one job for another job, right? And what happens, and it happened to me too. So I'm not like, when I left my teaching job, that the next year I flipped like 12 properties in a row, and the smallest that these were 6-figure like profitable flips, right? But I had a job again. Like I keep like, what I was doing, I was just replacing one job for another. Now I was running all over the place, making sure that these flips were happening. So like for somebody, they have to decide, first of all, like, what do you want? Like, do you want time freedom? Do you want location freedom? Right? Like, what is it that you want? Because just replacing that with another job that basically you're moving from employed to self-employed, which is not where you want to be. You want to be a business owner, or you want to be like an investor, right? And that takes a little bit more time to do. You can do that by switching to focus on multifamily and create more of a business, but you have to invest a lot more in education and relationships in order to do that. If you are kind of like want to be a lone wolf and you want to be the guy who does everything, then maybe focusing on those 1 to 4 unit properties is where you need to be at, because that's gonna get you where you need to go. You can drive your own like cash flow or profits depending on how hard you want to work. And so I wouldn't say that there's a one size fits all kind of solution, but it depends on the personality of the person and what they're trying to achieve, right? If you're trying to make, $5,000 a month, then, you can do it both ways. It's really a personal preference, which way do you want to do it? And do you want to be self-employed, or do you want to be a business owner, right? And you can still be a business owner and flip properties and wholesale, but it requires a lot more structure underneath. Like you'll need to create positions underneath you to be able to do that, and it requires a lot more thought, right? If you're going to make that into a business. So it is possible to do that in the 1 to 4 unit space. I just find it's a lot easier to do in the multifamily space, because like you have on-sites, like on-site supers, for example, that can help you to do that. You can, when you have a larger building, you can scale more with property management. You could if you have a couple hundred units, you have your own internal property management company. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of swing it, and then you don't have to be the person swinging the hammer, or getting you're involved in every part of the day to day, right? I mean, you still have to deal with stuff like I'm responsible for everything that happens in my business, right? So if there's a problem and it doesn't get solved before I'm going to be the person that has to figure out how to solve it, right? That's what I have to do, and I accept that, because that's what I do as a business owner. But what I need to do after is figure out how do I solve that problem so it doesn't get back to me again in the future, right? And that's how I create a system or part of that business that makes it a business. So that's that's the way I kind of see it. And sorry, it's a little long-winded, but it's really a personality. Who you are, it will define what you want to do, and that'll change too with mindset and what you want out of this business, right?
Yeah, and no, it's a brilliant answer, because I think there's never a black and white answer in real estate. It's always, always, always depends. And I'm part of this Bigger Pockets group, and I see a question, and there's tons of great answers to that question, but it all depends on that person. You can have the same question, but 10 different people and have 10 different answers to that exact same questions, because it depends on that person. Are you looking for financial freedom in the next 6 months? Are you looking for financial freedom in the next 6 years? Are you never looking for financial freedom? You're just looking for something, a legacy asset, or to pass down to your kids. It's all depends on what your goals and your personality as well. That's a huge part. How do you work as a person? What is important to you? How do you like to work? Some people love flipping. They love the process of being in there, watching this ugly thing turn beautiful, being hands-on, doing some of the work themselves. And to some people, it's the worst thing they could ever imagine. They try it and they're like, this is not for me. I don't want anything to do with flipping whatsoever. There's no right or wrong. It just depends what's right for you as a person. And I think that's such a great point that I think sometimes doesn't get imposed enough on people, that it depends on you as a person, and you need to figure out who you are as a person, what skills do you have, what's important to you, what makes you tick, what makes you happy, right? What do you enjoy, like you said? And I think if you figure those things out, it can help you a lot. But it's interesting to see that you started out with small, and now that you said you're at, you're doing bigger and bigger projects. What is your process with these apartment complexes? Are you looking for something that's broken down in pieces, that's 50% occupied? Or do you looking for more stabilized assets that you can just go in and do a light renovation? Or you maybe just looking for something that doesn't need anything at all? Because I know you said that you refi out of it, so there must be a value add component to all of these.
Yeah, it's all value add. But you have to remember where I'm at too in Ontario. So the landlord tenant board laws in Ontario are very much like California. So it's very different, and it's it's a challenging place to be. But also there is a lot of appreciation that happens in the market. But the way that I work is I typically a connector. I have a lot of relationships. I'm finding a lot of, actually all of my projects in the apartment building space, they never go to the MLS. I'm never buying anything off the MLS. It's always relationships with brokers, either like pocket listings, or I'm talking directly to owners. I've bought properties from leads from my contractors, from different professional, my electrician, and then all of a sudden I give them $5,000 and I buy an apartment building, right? Because it's a relationship type of thing. And so when I'm looking at the building, I'm looking at, okay, what are the rents now? What are the rents at market rent? And then how can I get my building to market rent? Now, it's very difficult where I am to do that. So I have to use, I actually wrote 2 books on property management. So I understand the law, and I always play within the rules. But I'll do things like cash for keys, where I'll pay out a tenant to leave, and as long as it makes sense from a we have to remember when a rent is $400 under market at like a 4 cap, right? So a cap rate at 4, so we take it and we multiply 400 times 12, right, for 12 months, and then we divide that by the cap rate, and that's the increase in value that happens. So I know from a capacity, and at a 4 cap, let's say it's like 125,000 or 120,000. I would have to calculate it, but yeah, I mean that gives me an indication of what I need to do in order to be able to turn over that tenant, and what I'm willing to pay them to leave, as well as, based on my renovation costs and a few other factors. But what I know is that when I get that done, the value of my building is going to go up significantly. And so that's what I keep doing. And I've been doing that. Sometimes I get home runs, and sometimes it takes me longer. Like I usually say that any building takes me 3 to 5 years. I'll give you a home run example. So
We like
last
home
year,
runs.
yeah, I like home runs. It doesn't like this is like 1 in 10, all right. But so we bought an 11-unit property for 1.3 million last year. Okay, I think it was about February. Last month, I got it appraised at 1.9 million. So we've turned over tenants, lowered our expenses. We put the water in the name of tenants that we were turning over, or a few other things, LED lights, that sort of thing, to increase our NOI. And then now at 1.9 million, my partner gets all his funds back in less than, well, it was a little bit more than a year, but I mean, 100% ROI is great. And plus he got an additional like 20K or something, not a significant amount, but it's still, but he still owns 50% of the building, right? And you keep doing that, people will continue to invest. Now he's ready for the next project. Like he's ready to go. And that's what I do, right? Now that is a high bar, but like I said, I've done it 4 years, 3 years, just that track record is what helps me to find other people. But it's really, finding the right buildings that make sense, and finding cash flow in this market is challenging, right? So this is typically what would be considered an appreciation market, but I'm always looking for cash flow. Like that makes me comfortable and allows me to sleep at night, so that like I have a reserve fund and I have cash flow that comes from the building every month. And we have very little vacancy. Like vacancy is less than 1% in most of the areas that I invest in. Like when you say like 50% unoccupied, like it doesn't happen. Like it would have to be the whole building had to be unoccupied. There's just like they're not building properties fast enough in Ontario for the amount of people that come in. Like we get over 100,000 new residents to the Toronto area every year. Like and they don't even build half that many units. So like where do you this is it's a systemic problem in our area. It's it's challenging for people who are looking, but for those who own like apartment buildings, and it is very much undersupplied in the market here. So it's it is a good business to be in for sure. But it also requires a lot more work, and especially with all the politics that's happening, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point that you make there is that you always hear people say you've got to take what you're given, right? Every market is different, right? And you can be successful in every market, but you can't be successful in every market doing this, trying to implement the same strategy. And like you said, where you're at, that appreciation is what really is what kicks it in, right? If it's a 4 cap there, you said that example, if it's a $400 rent bump, that's 100 at a 4% cap rate, that's $120,000. You've increased the value of that property just by raising that one unit $400. That's insane. That is one unit. If you can get a $400 rent bump at a 4 cap in one unit, you've improved the value of that property $120,000. Now, if you have 20 or 30 units of that, just do the math, right? It's a lot of money and a lot of value that you can create. So I think that's a really good point that you bring in. But an interesting thing that you said is you refi a lot of these, right? And you keep a lot of them and you keep the partners in. Where does that decision come from to decide whether to refi or to sell? Or do you just prefer to try and hold everything you can?
Yeah, so in the multifamily space, 5+ units, I don't sell anything. I'm a collector. I'm an apartment building collector. That's what I do. But if you ask me, well, what I sell, I sell the 1 to 4 unit properties, and there's a lot of like background reasons for that. That it has to do with financing is really challenging on the 1 to 4 unit space. It's a lot easier for me to get financing on the 5+ unit space because it's commercial. Like I look at the return on equity in those 1 to 4 units, and there's just not a lot of return on the equity that's left that's in that building. Like I'll have a property, let's say worth $900,000, have a mortgage of 300,000, but I can't refinance the property because the bank isn't going to allow me to refinance it. Not that the property can't support it based on cash flow or numbers. So that means I'll have great cash flow on the property. Maybe I'll have 1,500 on a 2-unit property, right? Imagine I have a triplex that has $2,000 a month in cash flow, just one triplex. But can I refinance it? No. And so that becomes a challenge, right? Because now I need to take those funds out, and maybe I need to sell that asset in order to access, 600,000, 700,000, and put it into something that will give me a better yield on my equity that's available. And a lot of people don't think about their yield on their equity. They're just trying to pay down their property, and that's it. But for me, like, I'm thinking of it as an investor, and I have funds that are sitting in an asset that I can't access. It's not really a great position. So those 1 to 4 unit properties, that's where I'm thinking about selling. The other ones, it's fine because it's based on net operating income, right? I can refinance those again and again. It's not going to make it, as long as the property supports it, and that's what I want. And I've done it. Like, I've refinanced the same property again and again, right? And that's what I want to do. I get big inflows of cash that comes from the refinance. Whereas in the 1 to 4 unit properties, it's based on the cash flow that comes from those assets. Sure, I can put a second mortgage on and access the funds that way. There are other ways of being able to access the equity, but it's a lot more expensive, and it's just easier to do in multifamilies, right? As long as and we don't have, like, in Ontario, we don't really have D-class properties. Like, we have maybe C-class properties. Mostly we have B-class properties and A-class properties. So when you're looking at that in Ontario, it's very rare that you'll find C-class properties. And so, it's that profile that I'm working with, that I'm happy working in that space, right? In the B-class space.
Yeah, it's not a bad space to be in. You get better tenants and less headaches for the most part, right? There's always going to be headaches, but slightly less than if you're in a C-/D type of area. But with investing multifamily, you said you're doing not smaller multifamily because it's 30, 40, 50 unit type deals, but now you're moving into bigger again, right? Into those hundreds of units type deals. What is the reason that you moved from that? Because obviously you're having success in that space. What made you want to go to even bigger size properties?
Yeah, so right now I'm buying 202 units over 7 buildings. So there are 30 or 40 unit buildings in the 7. For me, where I see myself going is getting into a larger building, like 100 unit or 200 unit building. It just offers more opportunity for scale. I have the ability to be able to get those deals done. I just haven't done it yet. But I mean, just in the process of finishing off doing 202 units, and I hadn't done that before either. So it's about pushing yourself. Like, every quarter I set a goal for myself that takes me out of my comfort zone. And, it's just continuing to push myself to do something a little bit more and learn. Like, I like to learn. I like to learn new things. It's one of the reasons why I started to invest in the US, because I felt like I know this is a little weird. It felt like I was starting again. Like, going into the US, I felt like I was starting everything all over again, because I had to figure out financing. I'm a foreign national trying to get mortgages in the US, and they don't want me. And, like, they want to do equity lending. And so I had to learn everything again. And, I like doing that. I like being, like, challenged to try to get things done and make things work. So, it's just part of my nature. I don't know, like, I don't know how else to I got this on my desk here. It's a little saying: never, ever, ever give up. Yeah. Right. And that's my personality. Like, I don't like to accept no as the answer. I like to keep pushing to a yes, and I'll figure out different ways to get to it. It's just my personality. I'll figure it out.
That's a great personality trait to have. If you're always thinking about ways to figure out there is no, right? There is no giving up. Like you said, never, ever, 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 ever give up. And it's just, I think that's a great trait. And I think it's a trait that a lot of investors have, a lot of entrepreneurs have, because you can't give up, right? There's going to be times, plenty of times where things go wrong, where you're back against the wall, where you have to figure things out. And if you just don't give up, you'll always find a way. If you never give up, you can't lose, essentially. So that's really cool. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, thank you for sharing all that, sharing your cool story, and it's just building such a cool portfolio from being a school teacher to this, right? And, you know, changing career paths and, you know, jumping in to be a full-time investor. And like you said, just like you feel like you're just getting started, even though you've built a really cool portfolio. So I appreciate that. And then we're going to do a second part of this. You have currently a book out right now, right? It's, do you want to give the book a plug before we get to the knockout round?
Yeah, it's the Action Takers Real Estate Investing Planner. You can look up my name, Quentin D'Souza, or the Action Taker Real Estate Investing Planner on Amazon, and you can check it out. Half of the book is around mindset and how to use the planner, and the other half is planning templates. So like quarterly plans, weekly plans, and how to put that into practice as a real estate investor, focusing on finding funding and financing your real estate portfolio. And it doesn't matter whether it's a single family or a multi-unit, 40-unit building, the process is really the same, kind of focusing when you're thinking of it from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
And
planning is so important, right? There's no doubt. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but planning is so. And it sounds like a great book, no doubt. So everyone should go check that. Where is it available if people want to find it?
Yeah, they can go on Amazon and pick it up on Amazon. That's the easiest way to get it, for sure.
Amazon's great, right? Just a couple of clicks away and it's here the next day. Is brilliant, especially with Prime. So very cool. Well, and we're gonna talk about, in that second part of this interview, we're going to talk about the planning aspect of everything and how important planning is, and how to plan your week, to plan your month, to plan your year, and, you know, goal setting and everything along with that. So I'm excited to dive into that. But are you ready for the knockout round?
I'm ready.
I believe you. So what would your wrestling name be?
I was the apartment collector.
Okay.
Collector, kind of like the bone collector.
Yeah.
But the apartment collector. I like that.
I like that too. Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it as well. You just collect apartments, you never sell. You may refinance and strip the equity out and buy something else, but you're a long-term holder. So I think that's really cool. Every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
Well, I don't know. I was thinking like the something razor, it can't be the money razor, or maybe the money razor. I don't know.
Maybe the razor with an R-A-Z-O-R, like razor, the money razor, like you.
Yeah, that's awesome. The money razor. That would be great.
I like that. The money razor. Cool. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career?
Partnering with people that didn't have the same mindset as me for what I was like. I have a long-term mindset, and what the value add projects that I worked on, even in the smaller 1 to 4 unit space, I ended up working with a partner who really wanted to take the money out quickly, and he really was looking for flip money. Do you know what I mean? Rather than refinancing and holding it. So then I had to come up with a whole bunch of money that I didn't have in order to pay that investor out, and then continue to own the asset afterwards. So that was, and it was a learning lesson after that. It was, partner with people, find out a lot more about who you're partnering with and why they're partnering with you, because that will really help to you and them to achieve the goals, right? Whatever their goals are should be in line with what your goals are. And that was a good learning. Whenever I get body slammed, I always learn something from it.
That's the important thing, right? We're all going to get body slammed, but you've got to learn from it. Otherwise, you're going to do the same mistake over and over and over and over. So I think that's a great point. Was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, it happens to me every 3 months. I'm always taking on a challenge like that, right? And the most recent one was this $40 million acquisition, right? I was like, my stomach went out. I'm like, okay, so I got to raise $8 million in how long? So, I had a few weeks, and I started calling people, and had from relationships that I built over the years. And, I was able to get that done, but I just did it. Like I believed that I could do it. I just needed the opportunity to present itself. I took it, even though I was scared, like there was like no tomorrow. And I surprised myself at how easy how easy I was able to do it. I'm not suggesting that people do that. I'm just saying that for me, I built up, my business and my relationships, and my reputation, to the point where I felt like it was easy to be able to do that. But at the time, I was really scared, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it or not. But I did it, and I just did it anyways. And I think more people should just do it anyways.
Right.
Right?
And yeah, that's definitely something a characteristic of someone that's successful, right? They're scared. Most people are scared, right? But the successful people are the ones that don't let their fear stop them, right? They do it anyway. Just like you said, they're scared, but they do it anyway. And I think that's, an important thing for people to remember, that everyone is scared when they're doing this for the most part. You should be scared, right? When you're trying to raise $8 million, right? But you're just going to do it anyway and go ahead and make it happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. You must have been scared when you went into the ring for the first time. Like you
Oh
must.
yeah, I was scared every time. Yeah, I was scared every time. Even though wrestling is entertainment, you've got a show to put on, and you want to put on a good show for the fans that have come to watch, that paid the money to watch, and just personal pride as well, right? You want to have a good match, and you want to be entertaining, you want to be a good wrestler. So yeah, I definitely had that. Every single time I was nervous, every single time.
Well, we love you for it, because I know as a kid, man, we would have so much fun in the schoolyard doing all those moves, and well, for us it was the WWF right at the time, and those were our icons, like in elementary school. So it was cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Quentin, thank you so much, man. And we're going to record part 2 after this, so everyone should stay tuned for that. But if people want to get in touch, if people want to find out more about you, how can they do so? And give the book one more plug as well, please.
Yeah, so you can find the Action Taker Real Estate Investing Planner on Amazon. The best way to connect with me is QMan REI on Instagram. You can also email me at Quentin, QUENTIN, at realwealthy. So that's my email address, and those are the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for part 1. I'm excited about part 2.
Woo!